Elisia Advent is back. This video is going to focus on autoing hell difficulty. If you're looking for epic hell, that's going to be in a separate video, which you can find in the description. For anyone who's done this advent before, pretty much nothing has changed since last time. The only real changes are in phase 3, where for this passive, at the start of the turn, decreases buff durations of all enemies by 1 turn. I'm pretty sure this is just a preventative measure to prevent Midnight Elisia from just soloing the entire phase by herself. And then there's also here, not too important, she gives herself crit chance buff before using her Snowstorm, which is probably her S3. Yeah, it's her S3. You just don't use AoE attacks and you won't ever see this, and it's slightly easier in hard difficulty now because she won't dispel all debuffs when you hit her with a non-critical hit. As usual, you can find a text guide in the description if you want a more detailed run through of this event. Otherwise, I'm just going to quickly go over the important abilities that you need to know to get a successful auto run going. So first off, there are these ads. They can only take 40% of their max health per hit, so you're going to need 3 hits or use extra damage in order to kill them. This is important because Elisia is permanently stealth, and usually stealth is 50% damage reduction. It's increased to 90 here, so you're pretty much not going to do any meaningful damage to her until you kill all of the ads. Also, she has permanent immunity, so you can't use Death Break. You're going to want to use 2 to 3 AoEs and just quickly run her down. Some good units you could use is stuff like Vivian, Vildred, Bellion, pretty much anything with AoE. If you're looking to fast clear, you could use Drink to kill the ads quickly and then just one-shot her with Straze or something. On to phase 2, which is the most annoying part. This troll has 45% damage share, and if you apply 3 debuffs or 2 or more of the same debuff, like 2 bleeds for example, he'll dispel all debuffs from all allies. This means that while you do want to apply Death Break, make sure you don't load up too much on debuffs. Also, his S1 has a 50% chance to stun, and it attacks units that are not in the front row, and it dual attacks. So whatever DPS you have in the back line is maybe going to get stunned, and it's going to take a ton of damage from Elisia, so make sure you have enough sustain or death buff or barrier to keep them alive. Elisia, on the other hand, her S1 always hits front, and if the target has less than 2 buffs, she activates Frost Pillar, which is an AoE attack and that applies injury as an extra attack. This makes stuff like Rowana really good for doing safe runs, but Rowana also doesn't give any utility, so she's pretty slow. The other important thing is that if you have less than 2 buffs, you also do 30% less damage, so if you're doing fast clears, make sure you apply 2 buffs before you try to do any damage. Units like Vivian or Diane are really good. Stuff like Lulica can do Death Break damage and Death Buff and Barrier. Sid and Midnight Elisia are good for self-applying buffs. Lastly, on to phase 3. I'm not going to go too in-depth on here because everybody just one-shots it, and you probably should because this is a bunch of annoying mechanics. The main thing you want to keep in mind is while you're one-shotting it, don't use any AoE attacks or she's going to do a bunch of bad stuff to you. So one thing I forgot to expand on is that she dispels debuffs when you hit her with a non-critical hit, so any units that you're hitting her with, even if it's supports, make sure they have a 100% crit chance. Also, in all phases, max HP damage is only 50% effective, which means Daydream Joker is still going to be the best artifact, but it's not going to do as much damage. Make sure you put that on your highest DPS units for the hardest phases, otherwise this means that artifacts like Portrait or any damage boosting artifacts will come much closer to matching Daydream Joker's damage. This is the team I'll be using for 100% consistent auto one-shot for Hell mode. For Pet, you want to make sure that you have the event currency gained, and also if you want, you can use the Rare Catalyst. This does proc during this side story because it's technically a side story. Mercedes can be any unit with an AoE damage and AoE S3 for your team. Charles, Closer Charles, Operator Sigrid, Vivian are good examples of that. Prairie Witch Assyria's S3 does extra damage on a successful hit, plus Rengar Special Drink lets you one-shot the ads, and Straze will one-shot Elisia into the next phase. Midnight Elisia's S3 is a really low cooldown, it's only 3 turns, so we're going to make use of the CR decrease on Leica's S2 to let her use it very quickly. Leica's S3 also gives immunity to prevent Lilius from getting stunned by the troll, which did get slept on this turn, but it's not consistent, so we're not going to consider it normally.
내 손을 더럽힌다는 걸
S3 is back up and we one
영광으로
shot.
알거라. 지시를 내리시. 이번 점괘는 어떨까요?
Beat on pushes everybody up, gives everybody attack buff as well. Straze trims the HP. And F Maya finishes it off.
볼 테면 받아보시지.
Okay, so for stats, Mercedes just wants to be faster than Briar Witch Area. Her damage only needs to be high enough to do 40% of the ad's HP. I gave her a team attack imprint to try to make it easier for Briar Witch Area and Straze to do enough damage. Her artifact doesn't really matter too much. If you really need it, you can use the attack boosting artifacts like Card of Small Miracle, Super Duper Water Shooter, Warhorn, or Midnight Bloom for extra crit chance instead. I have her on Tag of Hells because I'm using her for Epic Hell later. Next up, Briar Witch Area. You want Rengar's Special Drink for the extra damage effect to stack on her S3's extra damage effect. You want her to go before Straze to kill the ads in time, and then the rest of it is just load up on damage, preferably with attack. Straze, you also just load up on damage. His speed doesn't really matter, so just focus damage. He should be overkilling pretty easily, so you can use Portrait instead of Daydream Joker and save that for the later phases. First up, Midnight Elisia. This is just her PvP build with the artifacts swapped out. If you can't get her this fast, you could try running CR pushers with the team. Laika just wants to be a bit slower than Midnight Elisia, so that when you put the immunity buff, it'll go after her and she'll have 2 full turns instead of only having 1. She needs a 3-star awaken for the immunity buff, and that's about it. Super Duper Water Shooter to boost Elisa's damage. Beatom, all she really needs is some speed. I think mine's a little bit too fast. I might slow her down because if she doesn't get CR pushed back, she would have cut F Maya. Next up is Watcher Shuri. You just load him up on some damage. There's not a strict gear requirement for him. It's just so long as him and F Maya do enough damage combined to one-shot phase 3, then you're good to go. And just a quick look at F Maya. My F Maya's S3 isn't fully molded. I just put some friendship molas in there, and you could just get 20% extra damage if you wanted to. That's it for the Hell Auto portion. If you're looking for Epic Hell, as mentioned earlier, there's a link in the description. And as always, guide in the description and Discord link.